To the world according to Rocky, and I am your guest, Rocky Miller, and I'm here with a very, very, very special guest, someone who is very influential in the community, and also I got to give you a full disclaimer: you are a personal friend of the family.
Yes, I am.
So I just wanted everyone to know that, and so we're going to sit down as we have many times and have a conversation about what's going on in Waco, the future of Waco. Your vision, and also share the vision of the council. But first off, I want to congratulate you. You've been in office now. Well, you were elected a year ago yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I know that is a big deal because if I'm not mistaken, this is the first official public office you ran for.
Yes, yes.
It was your first foray into politics.
Yes, for myself, yes.
And so tell us about it. How's the first year been?
You know what? It's been amazing. I can't lie. The people who know me, and thank you for having me, first of all. It is my pleasure to sit here and talk with you. One, just because I think the platform is amazing, and I'm glad that you're doing it, and I'm glad that you're giving people in the community another opportunity to have their voice heard. So thank you for your work and what you do. For anybody who knows me, y'all know I am a big old baby. And yesterday, those Facebook memories came up, and I was just crying my little face off because I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's been an amazing year." And it's been interesting because one thing I can say, you know, I've been exposed to people who are brilliant, and I mean from the folks on the corner to the folks in other council members in other cities, mayors, council members, aldermen, alderwomen, just the amazing opportunities. Now, please understand, this is actual full-time work that we do not get paid for, in addition to my other job and family and children and ex and such. But I wouldn't have traded it for the world. And I understand now, watching like the people I know in politics, and I really do understand the why, because my why has been absolutely fortified in this 1 year.
Well, it's very interesting that I just want to touch on this. You mentioned that you're not a paid politician. Your seat, there's no compensation for your seat on the council. Volunteer position. So this is what kind of confuses me a lot about politics in general. Everybody in politics will admit that all politics is local. Mm-hmm. The most important elections that are held and the most important elections for your community is the ones that are locally in your community.
Absolutely.
So a lot of us focus on the national offices being held. What really happens in this community is done through the city council, the commissioner's court, the DA's office, all that kind of stuff. And so my point is there a reason? Is there some strategy behind not paying city council
so different municipalities do it different ways because there are cities who do pay their council members, and it just depends on how your charter was written. Ours does not compensate the council members nor mayor. From a personal perspective, I think that it is difficult, and I think that it hinders those who probably could and would want to serve from doing so, because this is a lot of work. And if you don't have the type of job that allows that kind of flexibility, or you're retired, or you're financially stable to where you can take 2 years or however many years off of your job to do this, it can be difficult. I think that's something that we should look at. And I mean, I know that eventually we'll get into a conversation about charters, but you know, that's not, you have to think about it from the stipend, you know, that you get went from, there's some cities that pay their council members $25 a meeting.
Okay.
And that's
well, that's still more than you guys get paid.
Well, no. We get it. I mean, we do get a small stipend.
Okay.
We get a monthly allowance. There is no comma in it, so don't think there's a comma in it.
Okay. Y'all getting vending machine money or whatever.
But anyway, I mean, if you're doing it, you know, for me, you know, I'm doing it because I know it needs to be done and I want to do it. and it's a sacrifice that I'm willing to make. But everybody doesn't have that privilege.
Well, again, as you mentioned that you can afford to make that sacrifice, whereas my employer wouldn't allow me the flexibility or the time that it takes to serve and also make my salary. So therefore, here's the point that I'm getting to is that it ends up though how noble volunteering may be in the capacity of city council, however, the entry point of getting into politics is really about, can you afford to run for office? Can you afford to serve? And if you can't, that means that the office is really reserved for a certain class of people.
Unfortunately, that's true.
And so people
unintended consequences.
Again, and I think at some point, we should revisit that, because I think there are many other qualified people in our community who would run for office if their ends could meet and serve as a council member.
Absolutely.
And so those people should have that options, because it shouldn't be just to the people who have banker's hours, so to speak.
Absolutely. I know that the nonprofit that I work for, they have been exceptional in knowing what the importance of what I do, not only for them, but in this role. And I work real odd hours. So, thank God for Outlook, where you can delay that 3 a.m. email that I wrote. So you don't get it till 8 a.m. But we make the sacrifices we have to make in order to get both jobs done.
Well, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Again, you've been around politics all your life. I haven't, and my acquaintance with you and people like you and Pat Miller have brought me into an arena of understanding what kind of sacrifice, what it takes to be in politics, what it really means to strategize, not only for your benefit, but for the benefit of the community. And so what I guess the next question I'm going to ask is, how did you get interested in politics, which is a very stupid question, considering
there's no such thing as a stupid question.
But to see the sacrifice right before your eyes and know what it takes to be a member of city government, what made you want to do it for free?
Okay, so, there may be people that don't know me. My mother was Mae Jackson, who was the first African-American female mayor of the city of Waco. She served on city council first for District 1 from 2000 to 2004. She was elected mayor in 2004, and she passed away in office in 2005. I was very surprised when I got the call that said she was running for office, because Mom was always a kingmaker. She ran campaigns and managed campaigns.
Okay.
She never, it wasn't like she was like, oh, I'm going to be front of the house. That wasn't her thing. From dog catcher to the presidential election, she was managing campaigns and moving folks and, activating people. So that's the part that I saw. I always grew up watching the work, the importance of registering people to vote, the importance of getting people to the polls, the importance of not missing any election. So, it wasn't off-season elections. There was no such a thing, because if the polls were open, we were voting. Y'all had Linda Lewis on last week. Linda Lewis was the elections judge when I turned 18.
Oh, man.
So on a Sunday afternoon, I went to the McLennan County Courthouse and registered to vote.
Oh, man. So, yeah. So, again, though, I relate a lot of people's personal journeys to mine, and I often think about how much contrast there is. But in that regard, my mother was a lot like your mother, in that she encouraged me to vote. She made sure I was registered to vote. She encouraged that I always participated in an election. And that's one thing I saw my mother do each and every year, is it, regardless of what the election was, she was a participant. And so it was just, I've always wanted to be in the process, as far as voting. Now, getting involved in elections, I can honestly say your election was the first election that I had truly volunteered to work in, and it was not because of my own association with you. It was because my wife thought you were an amazing person, and she said,
shout out to Keisha.
And she said, we got to help her get elected, and I'm like, okay, and I first got charged up about it because I like to be part of winning organizations, winning teams, whatever you want to say.
Right.
And I knew from being acquainted with you that we had an amazing candidate. So amazing campaigns start with amazing candidates. But then I realized that when the work was there to be done, it wasn't as many people. You had a lot of yeses, but not as many doers.
Right.
And I've through this past couple of years of working with campaigns and politics, I understand it. I assume you knew that going in that was going to be the case, though there was a lot of people that are willing to urge you on, but when it's time to put boots on the ground, there is not as many people there to do the work with you.
Oh, absolutely, and it's a lot of work to do because it's not just going out and shaking hands on Saturday at the neighborhood, whatever. It's about walking, the entire footprint of your district. It's about making those phone calls with thousands of wrong numbers. It's about clearing voter rolls because thousands of people, those numbers are wrong. Those people died. They've moved, all kinds of things. And you have to go through and screen all of that. And that has to happen at every election. You asked me a minute ago, why did I do it? I did it because when, born and raised here, went to college, went to work, got married, lived in Houston. Mom died. I really, was coming back only to see and hang out with my father. He passed away, and my husband and I decided to come to Waco in 2015. So
Shout out to Elijah Barefield. Woo-hoo. Best decision he ever made was moving to Waco. Second best. No, I'm just messing with you.
That's my boo. Anyway, so we moved here, and I got to work. I started working for City Center Waco as their Main Street manager, and I started just getting involved because, I'm from here. A lot of people I knew and were, still here. I met a lot of new great people and started getting involved, and I noticed that a bunch of stuff that I knew was started hadn't happened or wasn't happening, and you start asking questions. When you start asking questions, if you're not given the answer, apparently you are the answer. So we had a conversation about what is this going to look like for our family if we do this, and what is this work going to take? Because not only making the decision to run, campaigns aren't free, billboards aren't free,
yes,
TV commercials aren't free, Facebook ads are not free, and so you have to raise money. You got to raise sweat equity, capital, people power, all of those things, because you can't do it by yourself. I am every woman, but I cannot be everywhere. So
absolutely.
I'm grateful that, I said it yesterday, shout out to the squad who was with me. So the fact that Keisha believed in me and then brought you and Gianni and the crew and everybody together who, along with my sorority sister, shout out to Waco Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, church members, everybody, family friends, old friends, new friends, people I'd never met before, but were associated with me through someone else that said, hey, you know what? We'll go walk for you. TSTC came through. Can I tell you, Melvin Carter and Lisa Carter gathered up a gang of students, and they walked for me. But before they walked for me, I made sure they knew who I was, and
that's very important.
And
that's very important.
They knew what I was standing for, because I wouldn't want anybody to, make themselves, make their beliefs fraudulent by standing up for me. So I told them what I was about, and I asked them, "Were you willing to stand with me?" And that's how this kind of went through. And you get through and you walk and the neighborhood and you get to meet folks, on the porches, because that's what we do. And, in the shops and at the corner stores and and that's what we do. And we have I have gotten an amazing extended family and extended community, and I look forward to even meeting more people and get to working, because I can't do what I do without ears to the street. I got 2. You know, my district represents 11,000.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, you know, and we can only do what we do by hearing from you all. And it's sometimes it's good stuff. Sometimes it's not, you know, and sometimes it's fixable easily. Sometimes it's a process, you know, and the one thing that, if I don't do anything else in this time here, it is keeping people informed of how the process and the system works, because I think that that's something that we've kind of stepped away from, is knowing how things happen, knowing why they happen, knowing who to help you get through processes and issues, because, you know, everything doesn't belong to me.
Absolutely, Andrea, and that's one of the things that I have looked at and saw that I could help on. I have a pretty big mouth, and I'm not afraid, and I'm not afraid to talk. And so one of the things that I realize in our community, there's a lot of I've heard you use the term news desert, or information desert. And that's one of the challenges is that a lot of people in our community don't know about the processes, what's available, what opportunity is available. It's not so much is that there is a systemic opposition to the advancement of certain groups of people, but if the information isn't disseminated to them and no one reaches out and makes sure that they have the very important information that gives them the tools and lets them know about the opportunities, it may seem systemically unfair.
Correct.
When it's just about not being informed.
Correct.
And so that's what I want to do, is inform the community. And so while you're here, you know, we won't be able to talk about things in detail, but I really want to talk to you about things that we're going to, as the community is advancing. What are we going to do when you say District 1? We're talking about District 1. District 1 is where I grew up. District 1 is the most affordable place to live in McLennan County, bar none. And it has the infrastructure within the community to where you can go places and shop, and there are a lot of walkable neighborhoods, and it's really a great place. However, if you were to drive through and not know, you may get an impression about District 1 that's not true. And because of I've been in meetings with Chief Holt, and where you may think it because of the because it appears to be impoverished or low income, that there's crime ridden or crime infestated, but that's not the case. It's just a neighborhood. It's an affordable living area, and there is the crime is no different than any other part of the community. I guess in some cases, it's there's a lot less crime by volume in District 1, and so these are the things that I think people need to know. I just, you know, I am actively, my family is actively looking for an opportunity to live in District 1, to purchase a home in District 1. I'm even not opposed to renting in District 1 if that is a viable option. But we need to make sure that everything that's offered in other communities and other neighborhoods, whether it be in Waco or not, that we have those same amenities that are in other communities. And as I bring that up, there's lots of construction going on Elm Street. It is very apparent that there's a lot of development going on, and no one knows what's going on in District 1 as far as that's concerned better than you. And can you kind of tell us some of the things that are going on? We see construction on Martin Luther King. We see construction on Elm Street. And can you kind of explain some of the projects that you have going on in your district?
Certainly. So Sam Cooke said a change gonna come. One of the things that, as you mentioned, news deserts, that I have, and I'm grateful that I finally saw evidence of what I asked for. As we have construction projects and things that are going, you know, if you don't see anything but a yellow cone, okay, or a road blocked off, all you know is I don't know why this is blocked off here.
They got Preston blocked off.
Listen, and no one's told you why. And so then what do? Well, I heard it was somebody, some of the things that I have heard as far as answers to what is happening, I mean, it's mind-blowing, and I am tickled to my soul. But I understand why people would think that, because of the way it looks.
If there are no news, the streets will talk.
Hello? So, you know, even the water line that's going in behind Sharondale from Lacey Lakeview really to the river, you know, through Faulkner and all of that. Somebody's like, they building a new road out there? I said, no, they're not. They're not building a new road. They have fixed decades old water lines under the land because we need better gravitational flow is the best layperson's explanation I can offer. But what we are wanting to do, since that land has been open and paved, is create. And I'm going to DC this week to try to seek federal support for hike and bike trails.
Oh, that's nice.
To come through that area. So, I mean, the land will remain level and will be upkept by Parks and Rec because now that we've changed the face of it, let's go ahead and manage it and maintain it.
We're going to utilize it.
We're going to utilize it. And, you know, if we get things the way we think they will go, it'll offer about 10 miles of hike and bike trails.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that would be probably one of the longest trails
one of them. I mean, you know, we've done we're getting there, and I do want to acknowledge the work that our Public Works Department and our Parks and Rec Department have done in making more opportunities for walkable communities and bikeable communities with the extension of the River Walk and the paths and trails that go in and around Cameron Park, which is also District 1, just for the record. And so adding that addition would just make it even more pedestrian and cyclist friendly community, because that's what we really want to do, because that builds a complete community. Elm is bustling because we have finally gotten we got a state grant and a commitment to city funds to better our communities and our sidewalks and make, you know, things ADA accessible that they should be. Because, you know, those steps on Elm, I mean, I'm 42, and it's kind of hard for me to get up on some of those steps at Todd's.
I can truly say I didn't know those steps were made for walking.
Listen, knees asking serious questions when you get on there. But the project got funded by a TxDOT grant, and we will have new sidewalks, new lighting features, crosswalks, landscaping, and those are the things because that street deserves to be revitalized. It was the entry point to Waco historically. As you go across the suspension bridge, that's how you got there before I-35. And you know, the work that's happening or that will happen at Bridge Street, you know, those are things that will change.
Wonderful project.
I am so excited about that, and I want to thank all the people who were involved with the working groups with City Center Waco and our neighborhood associations that have committed to making their voice and the voice of the communities heard. And see, that's the kind of community involvement that gets things done. And because we're not going anywhere, and we want better, whole, complete communities. And those are things that we have the opportunity to do when we get involved and make our voices heard. You should be seeing signs, you know, where the Building Waco water projects and construction signs. I have asked, and I saw one. I saw one on Elm, and I saw one on MLK now, to explain what is happening on those spaces, because we don't want to make stuff up. We want you to know and be informed. If you don't do anything in my first year to my second year, I want people over informed. I want you to have no doubt, which is why I kind of started doing the on the ones, which is why, sorry about my April on the one, I got a little ill, but we will be redoing that. June.
Not a little ill, people.
Hey, it was a little. June the 20th. So after we have good and celebrated Juneteenth, we're going to go to Bledsoe Miller at 6 o'clock on the 20th and give updates about projects that are happening within the city. But the theme of this one is for the culture. We have some amazing things that happen and have happened in District 1 culturally. And let's have an opportunity to talk about them. I mean, there are projects that are upcoming. The mural project that they did on University Parks. Well, we'll have 2 murals that are being painted by the students of our community this summer. And I'm so excited to see what they come up with. Will Suarez is one of the artistic directors, and I love his work. And I'm excited to see what our community comes up with. Because, I mean, if you are familiar with Up and Down Elm, you know, these murals have been telling stories for a long time.
Absolutely.
And that this next generation has an opportunity to put their mark on it. I love it. I can't wait to see it.
Again, East Waco is an amazing neighborhood, and it's filled with amazing people, both past and present,
without question.
And so, and I want to be sure, and I don't, because District 1 is just not East Waco.
No.
So she, you know, I was part of another election, a county election, and they insisted that the candidate was only concerned about East Waco, and I can truly say that East Waco is important, but the entire Waco community should be a concern for all of us.
Absolutely.
And not just East Waco, but we should acknowledge the rich history and culture that exists in that community. And
Certainly.
So,
I mean, my district consumes of, yes, East Waco, but I also have North Waco. I have South Waco. I have TSTC campus proper. So the only people I don't have is West Waco.
So you have an amazing cross section of constituents.
MCC, TSTC, the BRIC, which is Baylor Research and Innovation Collaborative. I have McLean Stadium. So I've got, again, I met my district.
Amazing landmarks as well.
What? I'm so excited. I mean, because think about the energy and the ability and what is being fostered to come back into Waco, because the people who are studying at TSTC, those trade industries that are changing the face of working class in this country, okay? Because we finally figured out that it's not an if-then 4-year colleges or trade school. I mean, if we're real smart, it's if and or just if. Because I know people making hand over fist that have been successful graduates. My daddy was a graduate of TSTC. He did Paul Quinn and TSTC. Get your life, because we
you're doing this show with one.
Hello,
and I fed my family quite well.
Come on.
You know, I tell people many times that my experience in the military may have afforded me the opportunity to get hired at the VA. Mm-hmm. However, my training that I received at TSTC is the reason why I'm compensated the way I am. Yeah. And so
he's old. Is it TSTC or was it TSTI when you?
It was TC. TC.
Right.
See, I'm not that old, Andrea.
See, as a Conley graduate, I was raised around TSC.
Yeah.
When my mama worked there. It was TSC.
It was the late 90s. It was the late 90s.
Right.
So I know very well how what you can call it a trade school. Yeah. Or a community college. I know very well how it can benefit you, and to that point, I have tons of friends who now have bachelors and masters who started their education right there at TSTC, and who have went to do great things. So it's, you know, TSTC is an amazing springboard, and I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but I think there's a lot to be said about what TSTC offers and how it can benefit children, and specifically in our community east of the Brazos River.
Oh, certainly. I'm sure Provost Hutchinson wouldn't mind you going off on your tangents about TSTC. I spent the opportunity this afternoon with Dr. McCown at MCC as well, and just the amount of I was amazed at what I didn't know about MCC is the amount of wraparound services that they have that are dedicated to their students. I mean, the footprint there, it's not, it's not just, oh, I'm going to go to MCC to take my basics, before I go to whatever. Now, MCC has the University Center, that so you can absolutely do your 4 years locally if you want. Because if I am a native Wacoan or a Central Texan and don't have the ability or means to leave this area, I don't have to.
MCC is an amazing opportunity. My youngest son and my oldest daughter both graduated from MCC, so I'm very familiar with what they have to offer, and they they have a great, I would say they have a tremendous amount of support services for students of all academic situations and social situations. Absolutely. And so that makes it a tremendous opportunity for young people. And I think as I've been acquainted with several young people recently who have went to fine learning institutions, but they're strapped with tremendous debt. Yeah. And when you look at what the earning potential in the fields that they have or work in, it just, for whatever reason, it doesn't justify taking on that kind of debt to get those type of degrees when you're not going to be compensated out of school in a manner that is commensurate with what you paid. Right. And so not to diminish the university education, but at the end of the day, the cost of university education these days is you need to be going into a field that the compensation, or have rich parents.
That's it. And I mean, we've got enough issues that's not something that you want to add around your neck. But they have, one of the things that I appreciate and that I think we need is, and I went to a smaller school because I know I needed that kind of touch and connection with people to sow into me and to offer support. And the fact that, places like TSTC have staff that are connected enough with their students, and places like MCC that have staff that are connected in their students to say, hey, I see you struggling. These are the things that we can direct you to. I probably ought to put you out of school, but I believe in you. So we're going to give you this access to these resources. And let's work this year out. Now, if it's in a year you still haven't gotten it together, then let's have another conversation. But the fact that they will, offer up the access to wraparound services like that speaks volumes for, one, the institution, two, our community, and that they are dedicated to its growth and development.
And a light bulb just came off in my head for a moment, and I just wanted to speak this out, to articulate this. In District 1, you can get a quality education in high school through Rappaport Academy and a number of public elementaries. Mm-hmm. You can graduate from high school from Rappaport Academy, which is in District 1.
Yes.
Several public schools are in District 1.
Yeah.
You can get a college degree in District 1 from your choice of two fine learning institutions. Mm-hmm. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, MCC even offers graduate programs.
Through Tarleton or for TCU. So
you could essentially get a master's degree and never leave District 1. And not to say that you want to do it, but it just goes to show you, when you talk about what exists in District 1, education exists in District 1.
And I mean,
economic opportunity exists. There's so many opportunities.
I'm not giving up on bringing Paul Quinn back, just for the record. Let me go on record to say I have had conversations with Dr. Michael Sorrell, and I told him it was time for him to bring some kind of presence home. He didn't disagree with me, and he said, let's figure out how to get it done. So I'm trying to bring in an HBCU back to District 1. So
and again, that just goes to show you, again, there's the rich history in District 1, because at one point it had to be you could get education from 4 different universities or colleges in District 1. District 1. So, again, it just goes to show that residents of District 1 have amazing opportunity not too far from their front door. And so that's what, and as we move forward and we forecast what District 1 is going to look like, I like to think that we'll build on the very firm foundation that already been established and create even greater opportunities, not only for education, but also entrepreneurship.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that's why it's very important that we all get involved, not only in elections, but we get involved in community building. One of the projects that I'm very passionate about that happens in District 1 is Feast in the East, and just last week, I want to thank Baylor University, along with Dr. Tyra Lindsay Warren, for employing her class to develop a marketing strategy for Feast in the East 2019.
Oh, that's awesome.
They finished up their final last week, and I think part of their final was making 2 different marketing teams make a presentation to us, and then the best presentation, we selected one of the 2 presentations as the best, and though they both were amazing presentations, but we settled on one, and we started the implementation of their marketing recommendations and strategies just this past weekend. And so you can see, as you guys see Facebook beginning to talk about Feast in the East and fundraising and kind of beginning the buzz of it. I know we're 6 months out, and of those people
never too early to raise money. So you can guarantee that, and like I did last year, the District 1 office will be making a donation to Feast in the East, because that work is important. I saw that you could make your donation on Facebook now, so I encourage all the people watching on Facebook right now, go ahead and make your donation to Feast in the East.
Absolutely, and it goes to the point that we took one of the recommendations that was given to us by the marketing team is that we get started in May, fundraising and marketing with specific intent. And so that's what we're doing, and we're trying to make sure that everybody knows when it's happening, what's going on. So, because always so many people come to me after the fact. I didn't know that. Like I said, I think, and through using the marketing team, Keisha and I found out, though we were doing a good job of doing what we could with the resources we had, but if we were strategic in what we're doing, we could cover a lot more ground and ensure that we not only make sure that the people that we knew, but people and outside our community, and we could gain partners in the process who wanted to assist us in putting on an amazing event in District 1, such as Feast. And I encourage anybody, if you have a community project that you want to do, whether it's in District 1 or throughout the community, it's about getting people together and doing it. I know we have several hundred nonprofits here locally, and I don't want to discourage anybody from using any of those nonprofits. But if you see work that needs to be done in our community, identify it, band together, and get it done. Again, my point in saying that is that the work that happens, the improvement that we need to see in our community, is going to be done by the people of that community. There's no fairy god, magical caretaker that's going to go in and change the circumstances of people in District 1, District 2, District 3, District 4, District 5, other than the people in those districts. And so I encourage you, rather than let's slow down on the complaining and let's get to work. And that's what I've encouraged everybody in my circle to do. Let's not complain. Let's be the change that we want to see, and go out and identify needs and address those needs.
I know that even how as we became friends, I heard tell of how Feast and Eats got started, and that's exactly how it happens. And especially in this day and age of social media, if it's an issue that you want to see confronted, it's not that hard to fix it. But it's about doing something, because if nothing changes, nothing changes. I think that for us, I think our importance is, as we take care of each other, you know, I'm going to tell you flat out, the greatest ROI for us is our children.
Absolutely.
And that you all had added another level in last year in supporting J.H. Hines with the bikes and all the coats and all the things that you all did for the children in that neighborhood speaks volumes, because we are our brother's keeper, and we must take care of ourselves and each other. I think for me, I want to see, I noticed that of the community centers, you know, the Bledsoe Miller has not been renovated yet. And so that's my goal, to see it renovated. As long as I sit in this seat, you know, because we've heard all the rumors, you know.
No.
They going to shut the Bledsoe down and they going to sell it for Riverside properties. And I mean, I would hope not. And I'm going to fight all sides of the coin to make sure that doesn't happen. I think, you know, I want to see it as a center of excellence. And I hope that my focus is going to be STEAM. You know, I say STEAM and not STEM, because how are you going to have anything that's named after Jules Bledsoe and not have music involved? That's just foolish.
Okay.
So we need to have something that will acknowledge his greatness and the impact that he made on the world, and that Old Man River came from rolling along that river. So we want to make sure that happens. That's why that's why we go to D.C. That's why we go to Austin. That's why we continue to fight and advocate for programs that'll be beneficial for our children, for this generation and the next. Because I mean, Rock, you know, we're awesome, but we're halfway through our fight.
Yeah.
You know, and so I need somebody's fighting long past me. And it doesn't matter. My name doesn't have to be on it. I want that it exists to happen and be more important than who did it. It's got to live beyond the leadership. It's got to leave a legacy.
Absolutely. Again, generations past have laid a very firm foundation for us. But now it's time for us to build on that foundation and bring people with us, young people specifically, and let them know the way of becoming councilwomen and men, becoming directors and lawyers and doctors, and
mayors, senators, representatives,
absolutely,
presidents.
And the only way, truly, I go back to your story. The only way, I believe, not the only way, but one of the ways you knew that being a councilwoman was a possibility, is that you lived with one.
I saw it. Absolutely.
And so that gave you tremendous insight. Some may say privilege.
I own that.
But it gave you tremendous insight in the belief that you can be whatever. Certainly. And
evidence of excellence.
Absolutely. And so, and I think as you make an impression on our community, as Commissioner Miller makes an impression on the community.
Shout out to Commissioner Miller.
One of the things that I need to that we need to make sure that everybody knows is that it's attainable by anybody in our community. One of the things that I was disappointed about this weekend, even though I was disappointed that we didn't have an election.
No, we didn't.
A local election in the city.
No, we didn't. I said that yesterday. I was like, you know, it has been a minute that I didn't have to vote for anything. And that troubled my spirit, because you had elections that were unopposed. I don't think any election ever needs to be unopposed. And I say that as a person who sits in a seat who's about to have to refile in about 8 months. But you have to be a part of the process. And I think that happens when you challenge the people who say, if you don't believe they're doing a good enough job, challenge them.
Absolutely.
That's your voice. And I think that's our responsibility. I mean, now a lot of times I have had conversations this week with people. Well, no, I don't get involved with politics. If you're talking to me about a problem you have, you involved in politics.
So let me just put a scenario out there.
Word.
So, a lot of us are worried about our taxes. Not us, because I don't currently own any property in District 1, but I know a lot of people that own property, related to a lot of people that own property. And shout out to my mama who owns property in District 1.
Hey,
and a lot of people in District 1 are really worried about their taxes increasing. My point is this: if you don't have someone in office that is pledged to advocate for some tax relief as appraisal values soar in District 1, you're going to be burdened with dealing with that whether you want to or not. There's going to be taxes levied on you, and your answer is going to be, I don't deal with those politics.
You know? And so, well, with that, and you have to understand the tax and the appraisal issues about property taxes are statewide and not just defined to District 1. It's going on everywhere. But you need to understand really whose crisis that is. It's not our fault, but it is our problem. The issues lie in state government.
Yes.
And I mean, I want people to understand that property tax, even though all the people use 30,000 visitors you see per week coming in to visit Magnolia or wherever they're coming, that's not the reason your taxes are going up. It's just not. The reason your taxes are going up is because we have not found a successful way to finance school funding. And, so as opposed to the state paying what they used to pay to support public schools, they have decreased that by 25% ish or better.
Over the past decade, I believe that would be the case.
Over the past decade. And so the money has to come somewhere. So, well, let me change the percentage of, because you're levied by your educational institutions. And so if I increase the percentage that goes to the schools from your property taxes, it's paid for, right? Schools get the money they need, but that burden is now on the taxpayer. It's on us. So you do have to have someone to advocate for you, but you do also on your ownness need to learn how to go and dispute your appraisal and go down to McCad and say, hey, this is the property value I have. Last year it was this amount. This year it's this amount. Go through it. And I mean, there are legal resources that are available that even if you don't or can't afford a lawyer, you can ask questions. Housing institutions and organizations that are, dedicated to first-time buyers, we are encouraging them to do more, instead of home buying seminars, home ownership seminars.
Absolutely.
And talk about what the cost associated with owning a home actually is. Because for people who have never bought homes before, that's something that you may not ever know. I mean, my husband and I laugh about it because, we weren't real live adults till we bought a deep freeze, let alone having to figure out what my property taxes are and how to dispute my appraisal. And it's not something that we talk about growing up,
but it will definitely
private,
impact
right? And we don't talk about our money in our communities and things like that. That's not your business. That's not children's business. So it's not something that we got, or I got, let me speak for myself, growing up. But what I realized that as an adult, I needed to know it. And that's something that we need to sit and make sure that our communities have education on.
Absolutely. When you talk about education, I just want to take a quick pause to say you're listening to World According to Rocky, and I am your host, Rocky Miller. I have my very special guest and good friend here, Andrea Barefield, City Councilwoman of District 1 in Waco, Texas. And so we have just a little, Andrea, we're I know you have a flight to catch very early in the morning, but we have one more topic I really, really would like to talk about. Well,
Dun, dun, dun.
No, what I want to talk about is equity in our community specifically.
Yeah.
And what that looks like from a governmental standpoint. a lot of people in our community are seeing a lot of things happen in our community. And the people that are getting those opportunities are the same people who have always gotten those opportunities. And I want to talk about what does equity look like and what can we do on the ground to kind of get involved, become part of the economic boom that Waco is taking part of, everyone, and also what the city may be doing to address issues of equity in our community.
So, as a native Wacoan, the ability to have a full council, mayor from Mayor Deaver, and each member that represents our districts, you know, flat-footedly say we are dedicated to creating policy with an equitable lens, I don't think has ever happened before. Even though my mother was the first popularly elected black mayor of Waco, I don't know that she could say that we are working together as an entire council to make policy that speaks to equity.
Well, I want to freeze y'all till y'all get that done.
Right?
I want to leave y'all. Let's not have no more elections. Because you understand what she's saying, people. What she's saying is, people, that the council members and the mayor are dedicated to writing policy, putting pen to paper, to create equitable solutions to the problems and making that part of the vision of our community. And when I say our community, I'm talking about Waco. And that's not always been the case.
Right. No, it hasn't. We have a council retreat at the end of the month that is dedicated to looking at where we are, where our city is, making an assessment, our equity assessment, and then we can really determine how we correct our problems. The work has been done. I mean, and you've people who've done spot checks on and pulse checks on equity and racial equity specifically. For, I guess, the past 10 years. Since 2016, Waco Foundation brought in the Race Equity Institute out of North Carolina, and we started having cohorts of about 50 people per session, per group. They were broken equally, people of color and white people, equally as far as the numbers, so 25-25, and then the gender demographics were split. About what racism and racial equity, you know, really is, how it affects our communities, what systemic racism looks like, and how, you know, fragility and privilege and all of the things that would say that we don't have an equity issue, how we break that down actually and really, really show that we do. Several council members have been through it, leaders throughout our community. And I mean, that was important. And it was important to say, okay, so now city management has gone through it. Department heads need to go through it, because these are from top to bottom. We've got to change our thought process on what equity looks like and how bias influences us and how bias hinders us and how bias has marginalized our community for decades. And so now that we know better,
we definitely should do better.
And we must. And I think that with this lens, and like I said, when I mentioned we've got to do things that live beyond leaders and lay it in foundation.
Absolutely.
You know, that's what we're dedicated to do.
But one of the things I think in leadership in the city of Waco, we're going through a renaissance. Mm-hmm. When you think of all the progressive leadership that exists, not only on the city council and the mayor, but we're talking about Chief Holt as the police chief and Chief Tatum as the fire chief. We talk about Miss Emerson, who is the
assistant city manager.
City manager, and those are people that who are sitting in those positions.
Housing directors. I mean, yes,
and who may not. They have a different, because I've had conversations with these people. they realize and understand that their predecessors may not have the same view of the city that they have. And they're committed to making the change while in office. But for that change to be sustainable, it needs to be not only written in policy, but our community has to embrace those policies and ensure ensure that it becomes part of the fabric of our community.
And we have to talk about
that equality and equity is part of who we are as citizens of Waco and surrounding communities. And I'm excited about everything that's happening in our community, and I'm proud to be a resident of Waco and a born and bred District 1 member.
You know, I'm gonna say this. I know we got to go, but okay. I want to make sure that we know that it can't just come from lip service. And what we're trying to do and walk it down is as you see things building and being developed, you know, what that looks like to have are the people who are building, you know, people of color. You know, have you asked if there are people who are capable of doing this that are a minority or women-owned businesses? I mean, have you asked? You know, have you had job fairs in the community to which you're building so that the people who live in that zip code can work where they live? You know, I have challenged and asked all of the local banks, why is it that there's no bank-owned ATM machine in 76704? Sad, isn't it?
Yeah, that's quite unfortunate when you think about how much money their depositors may have in that bank.
I mean, I put one there because one, it hasn't happened, you know, but I also need more franchisees to come into East Waco and to District 1, because if you really look at it, you know, outside of the area around MCC, if you're going to talk about 04 specifically, all I got is dollar stores and churches.
Yeah, we've met our quota on dollar stores, churches, and liquor stores.
That's it. I mean, but you know, so at this point, I want to encourage business owners to know we've got money. We spend money. Bring it to me.
Absolutely. Andrea, it's been a pleasure talking with you. It's you know, you're an amazing guest. I don't have to do much work. I just have to bring. You're kind of like my mother in that regard. My mother was an amazing guest.
That was so fun. Ooh, I watched Mama Willie, and I sat up, and I was educated and I learned, but it was so fun to watch her on the show.
Yeah, it was her show that day.
That's sure was.
Yeah, it was her show that day. And again, Andrea, I want to thank you. You've been listening to The World According to Rocky. I am your host, Rocky Miller. Andrea Barefield, City Councilwoman, District 1. She's easy to reach. You can find her on Facebook, Twitter. Her email is
andrea.barefield@wacotx.gov.
All right, man. It's been amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hey, if you didn't get, you got to go back to the start if you're catching it at the end. There's a lot of great information. Much love, and we out.